Good evening. I'm Mikey, and welcome to episode 7 of Out of the Ordinary. Say hi to a couple of people here coming in. We have Calvin. Hey, what's going on, Calvin? Welcome. I'm Liz Clevenger. Hey, what's up, Liz? Welcome. Anybody else out there watching? Welcome to Out of the Ordinary. What's up, Otis B. Dreads? Stephen P. Kitty Cat. Man, we got a lot of people coming in already. Shit. All right, let's get this thing started. So, Elliot Ness, Chicago, 1929. Prohibition is the law of the land. Speakeasies, bootlegging, and police corruption are rampant. A young treasury agent is hired to smash the gangland rackets. His name, Elliot Ness. In just 2.5 years, Ness and his team of federal agents destroyed the bootlegging empire of Chicago's most notorious gangster, Al Capone. Because they could be bought off, Ness and his team were dubbed the Untouchables. So yeah, he must have been really good. After he cleaned up Chicago, Elliot Ness became the public safety director in Cleveland, where he spent years hunting a notorious serial killer. It would turn out to be his most frustrating case. In September 1935, the mutilated bodies of 2 men were found in Kingsbury Run, a slum district of Cleveland full of working poor, hobos, prostitutes, and street toughs. The case was first dismissed as a vicious but routine double homicide. But by the summer of 1936, 3 more mutilated bodies were found. According to the author Stephen Nichol, the discovery of the 6th victim threw Cleveland into a panic. Must summon little bit. Where are you? In the name of Psycho Bunny, I command you to come, little bit. Yeah. When number 6 turned up, it was like a bombshell going off. The city really exploded. The press and the public now had no doubt that there was a serial killer out there, that this individual was going to keep killing, and they wanted it stopped. The body count in Kingsbury Run climbed to 12. Only 2 of the victims who were positively identified, Edward Andrassy and a small-time hood, and Florence Polio, a 41-year-old prostitute. All of the victims had been decapitated, in some cases while they were still alive. The tabloids dubbed the killer the Butcher of Kingsbury Run. Stephen Nichol believes that the crimes presented a new kind of challenge for Ness. Ness got into the case quite extensively. In fact, he devoted almost full time to it, but he didn't know quite how to proceed with this case. It was like finding out where the mobsters were hiding and go and smash your way into the place. This was a different time of criminal that Elliot Ness was facing. Different type of criminal. Natalie, what's going on? Welcome. Author Oscar Farley describes how Ness worked up a profile of the killer. He determined from the way these bodies were cut up, somebody with a certain amount of medical knowledge, plus the fact It had to be a very strong man to carry these bodies all over and dump them where he did. And so he had this profile. It had to be a big man, strong and expert with a scalpel. Ness was determined to search every building and shack in Kingsbury Run, but he had no legal grounds for search warrants. The solution was classic Elliot Ness. He teamed up detectives with 5 officials and ordered widespread safety inspections. Stephen Nichols described what Ness and his men were hoping to find. It was a thought among Ness and other police officers that they were going to find this laboratory that was going to have blood splattered walls and have arms and legs lying over in a corner. Maybe a cage of heads in another corner. Ness men spent almost a full week searching almost every apartment, every dwelling they could find in that area. And they weren't able to turn up a thing. Ness was obsessed. His next move was to investigate every doctor, every hospital worker in Cleveland. Even the county coroner was not above suspicion. Hundreds of people were put under surveillance, questioned, and detained. But the investigation still led nowhere. Hello. The victims, then victim number 11 and number 12 were found. One in a garbage pile just 200 yards from Ness's office. Steve Nichol believes that the butcher was taunting Ness. The killer was now even becoming more daring by where he left the bodies, right really under Ness's window. It was almost like it was a cat and mouse game, a sort of catch me if you can type thing. Oscar Farley says Ness was under extreme pressure to find the killer. Christopher Bay Storebringer, hey, welcome. What's going on? He knew he had to do something desperately because the people were clamoring. All the people in town were insane about this insanity that was going on. Ness's response was to come down hard on the Kingsbury Run's hobo jungles. His police rounded up more than 60 transients, believing that the killer might be amongst them. Steve Nichol describes it as a return to form for Ness. One of the untimely failed. This was his old untouchable style of raid where you know you were the bad guy and you're going in and getting him. And he really thought that this might work, but it completely backfired for him. There was a great wave of public opinion that was the act of desperate man and that his tactics had been brutal and they didn't really solve anything. Sykes Clarn, welcome. Ness then ordered the shantytown burned to the ground. But all of the people arrested, none turned out to be the killer. According to Oscar Farley, Ness eventually targeted a prime suspect, a man who in 1938 voluntarily committed himself to a mental institution. Ness believed that he had caught the killer primarily because after this man committed himself to a mental hospital, the killing stopped. And he said, I am certain that this man fits the profile. And if Ness accused this man, whose family was socially prominent, he could have been a Libius and been sued. Ness later received several postcards from a patient in a mental institution. Author Oscar Farley says the postcards taunted him with the reference to the unsolved murders. The man who was sending him these postcards might have just been another cook, but he was convinced that he had found the guy. Ness never collected enough evidence to file charges in the case, but years later he told the reporter the case had been solved. Elliot Ness eventually ran for mayor and lost. He left Cleveland and never returned. So now the next case is sleepwalking. The mysterious world of sleepwalking is often portrayed as harmless or even amusing. But in reality, it can be dangerous sometimes, even deadly. In Iowa City, Iowa, Gerard Allgood was a talented football player during his waking hours and a habitual sleepwalker at night. According to Gerard's mother, Becky Allgood, it all began when Gerard was a young boy. He was a major sleepwalker, she said, and all of my boys are. And that scared me. And I'd talk about it and I'd ask doctors about it, and they would just pretty much poo-poo it like it's really nothing. When Gerard went to college, his sleepwalking continued, but nothing serious happened until the night of February 9th, 1993. Natalie says, "Oh, I've done that before. Scary as shit." Yeah, sleepwalking can be scary. I've done it before. I got some stories of sleepwalking.
The bodies of chaos are coming for you.
The bodies of chaos are coming for you.
Good morning!
See, Psychomantium says one of my all-time favorite movies is based on Sleepwalker. Assault. Yeah. So Gerard got out of bed and ran out of his apartment. His eyes were wide open, but he was not awake. He ran more than a mile barefoot on icy pavement. Oh, man. That had to have sucked. Well, I mean, of course he was asleep, but that had to have sucked to be barefooted on icy pavement. Witnesses later reported that he sprinted with the intensity of a runner at the finish line. Calvin says, my brother woke up on a tractor in the middle of a field. Yeah. Okay. Calvin did bring up that something too, about waking up. One time I had woken up outside in my boxers. Like how I woke up, I don't know. I just know I woke up and I was in my boxers outside. I was like, what the hell am I doing outside? So yeah, I understand that whole waking up in weird places. Dr. Mark Maulwald studied sleep disorders. And Psychomantium says, I have some hilarious stories through observing some people sleepwalking. Right? People who have these episodes spontaneously, like Gerard, get stuck in a state between wakefulness and sleep. Awake enough to perform complex behaviors, but not awake enough to be aware of what you're doing or responsible for what you're doing, you see? And Psychomantium just said that right now. The mod said, you don't know. Nobody knows. Somehow in his sleep, Gerard managed to weave around parked cars and turn corners. He then ran in front of a moving car and was struck. Gerard died instantly. Initially, authorities speculated that he had committed suicide. Gerard's mother didn't buy it. She talked to her son's roommate and learned that Gerard was having reoccurring dreams about running in a race. So yeah, pretty much it could lead to a lot of death and everything like that. It's dangerous for a sleepwalker, especially they say never wake a sleepwalker up. So Becky recalls what the roommate told her, and this is what the roommate said. Gerard said, it's a crazy dream. I'm running a race with a man from Bertram, only the man is in a car, and I'm on foot running a race as hard as I can run. Some might dismiss this as just a coincidence, but Gerard was killed as he was running down a road that leads to the town of Bertram. Becky Allgood was absolutely convinced that her son had not taken his own life. Dr. Mark Mawald agreed. There was not one shred of evidence that he had depression or any other reason to commit suicide. There was no evidence of drugs or alcohol involved. The only reasonable explanation is that this was yet just another one of his sleepwalking episodes. And the mod says, that's an odd way to intentionally kill yourself. Yeah. That's why, the mother didn't believe that it was a accidental suicide or anything like that, because it's very, very hard to, you don't have depression, you don't have all these problems. Why are you going to go try and take your life, And I don't recommend anybody, contemplating. If you're contemplating, you're feeling depressed, there are numbers you can call to, counsel yourself, but don't ever think you're alone. Let's get back to this. So, like Gerard, Heidi Reese is a chronic sleepwalker. When I hear stories about Gerard Allgood, I think that it could have been me, she says. And it scares me to think that. Also, like Gerard, Heidi is a dedicated athlete. In 1991, she was attending college on a track and field scholarship and felt tremendous pressure to perform. That pressure seemed to seep into her dreams, and she once found herself running while sleepwalking. I wasn't running from a particular person or thing. I was just running because I felt like it was the end of the world. It was like a monster inside me trying to get out. Bonnie K. Clatter, Heidi's mother, witnessed two of the most violent episodes. She says, I heard a blood-curdling scream, bang, two big hits, where I could hear coming through the door. I have to tell you, the force of her running through that hall I will never forget because of the terror. The look of terror on her face was so incredible. And for a mom to not know what to do in order for her not to be able to hurt herself again was a real scary thing. Really scary. Heidi once injured herself while sleepwalking. The biggest episode was in my mom's house back in August of 1995. Must have gotten out of bed and took one step and bolted straight into the wall. Oh, I know how that feels. The impact tore open Heidi's forehead. She gashed her wrist as she fell to the floor. The episode was a turning point for Heidi. She says, I decided I couldn't handle it anymore. I was terrified, and I said, I need to seek help. Heidi was tested at the world-renowned sleep clinic in Northern California. I had electrodes all over my head. I had a pulse on my finger. I mean, I was hooked up. I felt like I was from Mars. It was very, very uncomfortable, but it was an extensive test. They had to see what was going on. Heidi was examined by Dr. Clet Kushida of the Stanford Sleep Disorder Clinic and Research Center. Says, we wanted to see if we might be able to capture a sleepwalking episode, but that can be rare because it might not occur every night. But secondly, we know we wanted to rule out the possibility that it wasn't something else, such as seizures or activity. A sleep-related breathing disorder or even leg movements where that was causing the person to waken and trigger off the attack. Dr. Kushida could find no psychological causes for Heidi's sleepwalking, but he was able to pinpoint what is likely to trigger an episode. There's a lot of different triggers, they said. One of them is sleep deprivation. Secondly, stress can also increase a chance that the person might have sleepwalking. Well, Heidi Reese and Gerard Allgood fit that pattern. Their sleepwalking flared up under heavy emotional pressure and lack of sleep. Heidi has Heidi now has her sleepwalking condition under control through medication and careful stress management. Although the world sleeps and dreams has been the subject of decades of extensive research, scientists are still left with more questions than answers. Kelly, what's up? Welcome. So we get to our last episode, the Falcon Lake UFO. People who claim to have seen UFOs do not typically return with any evidence to verify their stories. But in this instance, the person involved came back with more than a tall tale. The evidence of his encounter was actually burned into his body. Stephen Michalak and his wife came to Manitoba, Canada from Poland after World War II. Stephen found work as an industrial mechanic and was also an amateur rockhound. He spent every spare moment in the beautiful natural woodlands of Manitoba. I love nature. I love birds, animals. Every weekend, I usually go out in the country and snooping in the rocks, which I guess means he's a mountain climber or something. On May 20th, 1967, Stephen was prospecting in the hills of Winnipeg when he was suddenly distracted by a noisy flock of geese. Looking on the tree, I noticed two cigarette light shaped things with the hump in the middle. I said, "What the hell is that?" One in the air and the other one is coming down, down, down. I start looking for marks, NASA or something. Nothing. I didn't see anything on it. Stephen's son, Stan Michalak, was 10 years old at the time and recalled what his father witnessed. Nosy flock. Right? So the son says, I do remember one description that he gave at the time. He said that the skin of the craft, the outside of the craft, was flawless. There was nothing. It was as though you had milled out of a solid block of steel. This saucer with the dome on top. Stephen told his son that. After a few moments, the door of the craft slowly opened. The light emitted from the door was so bright, he had to snap down the visor on his safety goggles. Then, after a few moments, the door suddenly shut, according to Stephen. The craft rotated counterclockwise, knocking him backwards and setting his shirt on fire. Dang, it'd have been pretty close. After igniting with the fire, the craft lifts up 30 to 40 feet and vanishes. And then I decide, now it's time for me to buzz off from here. So I start going. Roots Bleed Red says, someone is getting probed. I said, guys, getting probed. In shock, Stephen headed back towards his car. He was nauseous and vomited several times. Disoriented, he checked his compass, trying to find his way southeast to the road, but the needle went haywire. He was badly burned and still disoriented, according to his son. Stephen Burns left doctors baffled. Ooh. Yeah. Man, y'all are crazy. At that point in time, the diagnosis, if you call it that, was burns. And sure, they were burns. Yes, he caused burns. What they couldn't diagnose is that, and didn't have a clue about, was what happened below the chest on the abdomen. The exact same pattern of holes that was on the grid of the side of the craft in the same order, in the same rows, in the same number appeared as red spots of his lower abdomen, like red dots. So yeah, there are pictures of that guy. Stephen was released from the hospital, but his symptoms worsened. The nausea continued, and his body seemed to emit a sulfuric stench. Stephen was tested for radiation poisoning, but the results were negative. No one could explain the source of the strange burns on his torso. 6 weeks after the encounter, I lost my place. Sorry, guys. Stephen and his friend went looking for the site. After several hours, they found a burned out circle, the same size as the craft Stephen had seen. It was more than 30 feet across within days, and a team of experts from the United States, working with the Royal Canadian Air Force, converged on the site. They took measurements, cataloged soil samples, and checked for radiation. The levels appeared quite high, and the health department considered quarantining the area. Later, however, they discovered that the high levels were caused by unrelated vein radium, which ran under the entire region. Hi, Kisa. Meanwhile, Stephen's burns, which had appeared to be healing, suddenly flared up again. According to Stephen, his doctors remained mystified. After every 3 months, my burns from my legs and were coming back, showing up again and burning. Nearly 30 years after his encounter, Stephen died with the burned marks still emblazoned on his torso. For the remainder of his life, Stephen Michalak never lost faith. On May 20th, 1967. He had a remarkable encounter with something not of this earth. And that's my show for today. I hope you enjoyed it. This show was made possible by viewers like you. Thank you. Thank you, Odd Mother, for this wonderful opportunity. And thank you, Liz and Frank, for the production of my show. Thank all the great ones here at Psycho Bunny Death Cult and Psycho Man Tim 13. This has been Out of the Ordinary. Good night.
This is Mikey from Out of the Ordinary, and you're watching PBDC TV.
First thing in the morning, when I'm listening to music and getting a little bit of time for some creepy research, I'm always representing with my PBDC merch. What a better way to have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Don't forget to check out our other cool merch at rootsbleedred.com. That's rootsbleedred.com.
This is Professor Edgar Fluffosaurus from Spooky Tales with Steve the Cat, and when I'm not hosting Monster Chat or knocking down small Japanese cities, I'm watching PBDC TV. Now back to the show.
Hi guys, welcome to Out of the Ordinary. I'm Mikey. The following topic is going to talk about drugs and murder. I in no way condone the use of illegal substances. Viewer discretion is advised. All right, let's say hello to some of the people in here. Stephen P. Kitty Cat. Hello. All right. Oh, jeez. Yeah. All right, let's get started. DMT. DMT is a chemical substance that occurs in many plants and animals, which is both derivative and structural and a structural analog of tryptamine. It is used as a recreational psychedelic drug and is prepared by various cultures or for ritual purposes and ethanogen. Hello, Farmer Damon. How's it going? Welcome. I'm going to turn down these notifications here because they're going to start going off. But okay. DMT has a rapid onset, intense effect, and a relatively short duration of action. For those reasons, DMT was known as the business trip during the 1960s in the United States, as a user could access the full depth of psychedelic experience in the considerably less time than with other substances such as LSD and psilocybin mushrooms. DMT can be inhaled, ingested, or injected, and its effects depends on the dose, as well as the chosen mode of administration. When inhaled or injected, the effects last a short period of time, about 5 to 15 minutes. The effects can last 3 hours or more when orally ingested along with an MAOI, such as the ayahuasca brew of many native Amazonian tribes. DMT can produce vivid projections of mythical experiences involving euphoria and dynamic hallucinations of geometric forms. DMT is a functional analog and structural analog of other psychedelic tryptamines such as O-acetylpsilocin 4-AC0-DMT or 5-ME0-DMT, psilocybin, 4-PO-DMT, psilocin, 4-HO-DMT, and bupropion, 5-H0-DMT. The structure of DMT occurs within some important biomolecules like serotonin and melatonin, making them a structural analog of DMT. Now, the ayahuasca. The ayahuasca is a South American psychoactive brew as a traditional spiritual medicine in ceremonies among the indigenous peoples of the Amazon basin. It is an entheogenic brew commonly made out of brain stereopsis capi vine. Sorry, they have some big words here that I don't spell. And the Psychotria viridis shrub or a substitute, and possibly other ingredients, although a chemically similar preparation, sometimes called pharmahuasca, can be prepared using DMT and pharmaceutical MAOIs, such as isocarboxazid B or capi contains active. The other required ingredient in the plant contains the primary psychoactive DMT. This is usually the shrub P. viridis, but Diploteres cabrina may be used as a substitute. Other plant ingredients often occasionally used in the products of ayahuasca include Justina pectorialis, one of brew magnesia, especially brew magnesia in signs, the brew magnesia versicolor, or hybrid breed, or Datra species, and Mapacho, Nicotiana rustica. One person in particular that came up on the subject of ayahuasca was a man by the name of Sebastian Woodruff. And I'll be briefly explaining who he was and what ties he had to this herb, plant, or root. So who was Sebastian Woodruff? Sebastian Paul Woodruff, born October 26, 1976, was a native of British Columbia, Canada. According to his old fundraising webpage, he wanted to leave his career behind to shift into a new field entirely and starting working as addictions counselor. Hi, Natalie. After a relative of his struggle with alcohol abuse in the fall of 2014, he started going to school again and traveled to Peru to learn all that there was to know about healing and addiction. He chose South America for his own purposes as well, to find enlightenment and to gain knowledge about ayahuasca. According to his friends and family, Sebastian loved the outdoors and was a seeker who was looking for some spirituality. And thus his fascination with ayahuasca, a plant-based hallucinogen, wasn't that strange. Between his education and trips to Peru to earn money, he picked up random jobs like those in construction, tree planting, and sea urchin diver. However, after a while, his nature changed, and he started feeling down just as the thought of leaving Peru to go back to Canada. In 2017, things really began spiraling as apparently in a cafe at Pucallapa, Peru, he asked the stranger for a gun. So we get into how did Sebastian Woodruff die. In 2018, there was a brief period of time where Sebastian went back to British Columbia, but he returned to Peru soon after to do some soul searching and get some peace of mind. Hey, we got Calvin in the house. What's up, Calvin? By that time, his friends and family had started suspecting some serious mental health issues. In March, he rented a room in Peru and decided to buy a gun. He got a hold of a 9mm Taurus pistol, and that's when everything went wrong. In the days that followed, he rented a motorcycle, shifted to another room, and went to the police complaining that he had been robbed and had lost his passport. Then, on the morning of April 19th, he left the room telling the landlord's son that he was going to take some ayahuasca and never return. He apparently arrived at the Victoria Garcia outside Olivia Arevallo's house just before midday and shouted for Julian to come out before firing a shot in the air. Some reports say that Olivia stepped out of the house to confront him about the shot, and
The bodies of chaos are coming for you.
The bodies of chaos are coming for you.
Good morning!
rage, he pointed the gun and fired twice before trying to flee. A little bit. Welcome. The locals witnesses also said that he had demanded the healing chant from her before killing her. It was they who decided to take matters into their own hands. Olivia was their leader and healer, so her death had to be avenged. Therefore, they grabbed Sebastian from his motorcycle, beat him up, took a rope, and lynched him in public. Those people who did so allegedly told the audience that if anybody reported his death, they met the same end. But that changed when a phone video of the lynching ended up on the news anyways. It is not entirely clear exactly what happened in the moments before Olivia's death or why it occurred, but at the end, when Sebastian's buried body was found, forensics testing confirmed that he had pulled the trigger. So now we go into who killed Sebastian Woodruff, Wolf. The four men who have been connected to Sebastian's murder, Fidel Arevalo Moray, Nicholas Moray Gumares, River Gilberto Rojas, and Jose Ramirez Rodriguez. Jose was the mayor of Victoria Garcia at the time. As of mid-2019, neither of them have been arrested. Although they were identified in just a short while, they have hidden themselves by merging well into their flock and in Peruvian Amazon. And so the authorities are yet to catch and charge them. Where are the four men responsible for Sebastian's murder? Are they even still around? Remember, playing with psychoactive drugs has its consequences, and I am in no way recommending the use of these. It could cause serious injuries or even death. And well, that's my show for today. It was a short one this time. Don't forget to follow and like Psycho Bunny Death Cult, Psycho Mansion 13, PBDC TV, and Roots Bleed Red. The show has been brought to you by viewers like you. Thank you. Thank you, Odd Mother, Cemetery Joe, Liz, and Frank for letting me be.
I don't set the world fire. I don't want of a lady in my heart, desire.
Hi everybody, Delphine here. Just wanted to make an announcement. We are going to be starting a costume contest on October 1st. Submissions will be accepted from October 1st to October 7th. And the contest itself will be taking place between the 8th and the 21st, with the winner being announced on October 22nd. There is a prize. It is a great prize. There's going to be some Psycho Bunny swag, and maybe from some of our other content artists as well, and tons of Halloween goodies, because we all know that's our favorite time of the year, right? All submissions and voting will take place on psychobunnydc.com. And let's bring this up here. Here's a little bit more information for you. And remember, this will be taking place on psychobunnydc.com. I hope to see you guys there. Thank you for joining me for this really quick announcement. Bye.
Hey! It's me, Nick, the Psycho Mantis, coming to you live from Psycho Mantium 13. Join us here throughout the week. For all things in audio, visual, and literary content. You can also find us on the World Wide Web at psychomantium13.com. Join Psychomantium 13 and enter the weird.
This is Mr. Applewhite speaking. There is nothing wrong with your device. Join me here on Psycho Bunny DC. A delightfully dreadful consternation of horror content. Drink head and free your mind.